Cyberpunk Edgerunners has given us a brand new way of seeing the cyberpunk world, so I thought we'd go over the 3 best characters from the anime's builds, which can be absolutely broken, including David Martinez, Lucy, and Rebecca. If you have any additional tips or adjustments that you would make to these builds, leave it down in the comments. In Cyberpunk Edgerunners, David gets his hands on a military-grade Sendevistan, allowing him to slow down time along with some other benefits. A Sendevistan is a type of speedware in Cyberpunk 2077, which basically turns you into Quicksilver, allowing you to deal more damage while the world goes in slow motion. David proves to be very efficient with the Sendevistan, being able to put it to use over and over again without really having to wait for much of a cooldown. Now you would think we'd use something like the Militech Falcon Sendevistan, seeing as how military grade is basically in the name. And that is a very good version of the Sendevistan, but not nearly the one that we're looking for. What we want to use is the legendary Kyant Sendevistan Mark IV, because this is the one most true to David's ability to continuously use his cybernetics, quickly cooling down and becoming available to use again, because the Kyant Mark IV has the highest cooldown time, needing just 15 seconds to be able to use again, slowing down time to 25%. It also increases the damage you deal and critical chance by 15%. That 15-second cooldown rate is pretty insane. Usually the Kyant Sendevistan Mark IV will give you enough time to eliminate the group of enemies that are in front of you, and then before you even get to the next group, you'll be completely cooled down. Unlike David though, we will actually need to pay for this cyberware over at the Fingers Ripperdoc in Japantown, who if you chose to beat this guy up, which who wouldn't, you will sadly not be able to purchase the Kyant MK4 Sendevistan. Before being able to purchase it, you'll need 27 street cred and 15 reflexes to equip it as well. If you did happen to beat Fingers up, which no one can really blame you for that, you can opt for the legendary Dynalar Sendevistan Mark IV from Victor Vector in Little China, the Ripperdoc that you know from the story. It still slows down time to 25% for 16 seconds, but with a cooldown of 30 seconds rather than the 15 seconds that the Kyant took to be able to use again. 30 seconds is still pretty dang good though, just not quite the best, which is closer to what David would be using. We are also going to throw on the legendary heatsink mods to each lower the cooldown time by 4 seconds, and we are going to equip 3 of those, meaning we will negate 12 of those cooldown seconds from our Sendevistan, making it so it cools down within 3 seconds, which is just broken. And the crafting spec for the legendary heatsink mod can be obtained from the Ripperdoc in Arroyo once you have a technical ability of 18, which is what I would recommend doing anyways. We'll go over more of these skills you need in a minute. Make sure if this heatsink mod isn't popping up here and you're a high enough level, you just wait 24 hours to refresh the shop and it should pop up in there. As for the best weapons for David uses multiple weapons throughout the series, constantly upgrading his cyberware, but the only weapon he takes like a main liking to is the gorilla arms. And it makes sense since he goes so hard with the melee playstyle in the anime. The best gorilla arms we can get, and similar to what David Martinez uses in Edgerunners, can be obtained by purchasing them from Doc Ryder in Wellsprings, or also rewarded to you for completing the main campaign. Those are the only ways I know how to get the legendary gorilla arms, but if you know another way, leave it down in the comments. If you're still very early in the game, it'll be a little more difficult to obtain these legendary gorilla arms, but if you want to stay true to the David Edgerunner build, that's the way to do it anyway, since he doesn't really acquire them until much later in the series. But what you could do until then is opt for a lower tier gorilla arm in the meantime and pick up the epic variant, which I know can be sold by these 2 Ripperdocs over in the southeast portion of the map, the Ripperdoc in Rancho Coronado, Santo Domingo, and then the Ripperdoc in Arroyo, Santo Domingo, for only 25 street cred and around 20,000 eddies. Rare variants can also be sold at the Ripperdocs, only requiring 20 street cred and around 10 to 15,000 eddies, I believe. I know some prices change throughout the updates, but generally stay around there. Last I checked, it was like 12,500 eddies. Just go to any other Ripperdoc and you should be able to find a rare variant. We're also going to equip the Synaptic Accelerator to our nervous system, allowing David to slow down time in half for 4 seconds when he's detected. And you can get this particular Synaptic Accelerator from the Japantown Ripperdoc, but I believe other locations will also sell it. But this will allow us to slow down time even more often, giving us that extra David feel. Once you're detected, it'll automatically activate, and then a couple seconds after you can activate your Sendevistan, which can be pretty overpowered. We're also going to grab the Reflex Tuner from that same Ripperdoc as well, so that time is slowed down by 80% once your health drops below 25%, which only has a 40-second cooldown surprisingly. So if you do start getting into a tight situation and you're taking a lot of damage, time will automatically slow down and you can escape out of there or finish off your last enemies. You could also equip a nano relay instead of one of these to increase the duration of the Sendevistan by 2 seconds. We went over those 18 technical attribute points you should have to craft the heatsink mods, but I would also recommend putting 18 to 20 points into body so we can obtain the additional melee damage you can get in the athletic skill tree, along with the loads of perks in the street brawler skill tree, which will add additional buffs to our gorilla arms, including flurry to increase combo attacks by 50%, crushing blows, which can increase your strong attacks by 30%, which I think is one of the best perks to add to this build and kind of obvious, as well as Dazed to stun enemies and Opportune Strike to do even more damage to those stunned enemies, which is pretty crazy. But you'd have to find an enemy that can even survive to that point. Now those are the main attributes and skills that go along with David's build, but you could also dump the rest into reflexes or cool. I would recommend cool to go along with David's ability to not be seen when he uses the Sindevistan, since reflexes use largely guns and blades, which David not only doesn't use but seems pretty low skill with, at least if you're going with a pretty honest David Martinez build. Overall, for attributes, what you should have is 18 body, 14 reflexes, which you could take 2 points from here and put them into body if you want, and then 18 technical and 18 cool. And then here are the sliders to get that sort of David Martinez look. I'll leave a link in the description to a video from a YouTuber named R6 who has a pretty good guide on how to look like David Martinez, which are these sliders that you're looking at right now. As for David's jacket, you can start the quest to obtain it by going to Mega Building 4, David's original home. This side job will be called Over the Edge, and the location is in Arroyo Santo Domingo. After you find the BD, you'll have to send a text to El Capitan, where then you'll need to wait a full day before beginning another text. If you wait that full day and you don't get anything else, you might need to progress through the story, do a mission, or travel around somewhere, because it does seem to be kind of tricky to get it to pop. Lucy, probably my favorite character in Cyberpunk, is possibly the most broken build this game has to offer. She loves to put that monowire to use throughout the series, as well as being one of the best netrunners to exist and keeping a super low ninja-like profile. This is, in my opinion, the best build because netrunning was already absolutely insane if you like to not have a lot of direct contact, like Lucy, who will whip out that monowire if she does happen to get into a direct fight, which has taken on a pretty hefty buff, making the monowire the best melee weapon. The monowire now does a ton more damage than it did back when it first released, making this build absolutely broken with the incredible amount of range that you have as well. They also changed the way that the damage on the monowire scales, now increasing as you level up reflex instead of body, since now it's counted as a bladed weapon. The legendary monowire can be obtained once you've hit 45 street cred from the Ripper Dock in downtown. They'll be selling the legendary monowire for 35,000 eddies. You should also be able to purchase it for the same price here at the Wellsprings Ripper Dock. If you don't have the eddies or the street cred required for the legendary type, you could opt down to the epic version from that same Ripper Dock in Wellsprings or from Octavio at Rancho Coronado. Fingers, the Ripper Dock in Japantown should also be able to get you a monowire as well, assuming you didn't hit him earlier in the story, and those will only require 25 street cred instead of the much greater 45. If you want to be the level of netrunner that Lucy is throughout the series, you'll want to acquire the Netwatch Netdriver MK5, as this is the absolute best cyber deck you can get in the game, which suits Lucy pretty well. The Netdriver Mark V can be found at the Ripper Dock in Haywood in Wellsprings, but will require a whopping 40 street cred and 35,000 eddies. This cyber deck will give you the maximum amount of RAM a cyber deck can give you, a buffer size of 8 and 6 slots, easily making this the best cyber deck that 2077 has to offer. If you're not at that level to acquire that one yet, you can head over to Watson at Kabuki, or just barely southwest of there, you can get a rare Biotech MK2 much earlier at only 12 street cred. Then you can get the Biotech Mark III once you hit 30 street cred from Japantown using the Ripper Dock there, which should hold you over until you get the Netdriver Mark V that we originally went over. That's pretty much all of the cyberware we have that specifically pertains to Lucy, but you have a lot more of the customization you can opt for. I mean, she does seem pretty agile and stealthy, so you can go into cyberware that buffs those, but I personally make sure that I've got enough extra critical hit chance and damage with the frontal cortex slots. We can purchase the limbic enhancement systems from the Ripper Dock in Japantown, as well as the visual cortex support and the EX disc. You can get legendary quick hacks by hacking into these access points, which have a chance of rewarding them, or you can just craft legendary quick hacks once you're high enough in technical, but since we're not really messing with that attribute, you'll have to get your legendary quick hacks with a particular perk called Bartmoss's Legacy. which we'll go more into in a minute, or the access point farming method. There are of course also some missions that reward legendary quick hacks as well. Generally, you want to find access points that require at least 10 intelligence, save your game, and then hack in, and it'll give you a chance to be granted a legendary quick hack. The chances are much better if you get all 3 daemons though. The Data Mine Virtuoso perk will also guarantee a quick hack to drop from these, which will make your chances for a legendary much better. Pretty much all these legendary quick hacks, if you can get them in any variant, even if they're not legendary yet, are really good quick hacks to have. Of course, for your final build, you want the legendary versions, but if you have a lower tier version and you're just starting the game, that's fine too. For example, Short Circuit is really good because it can apply this effect throughout regular combat as well, meaning you can hit someone with the monowire with a normal hit, and if it gets a critical hit, it'll cause them to short circuit. Although she does have a good body and trains pretty hard, we're not going to put many points into body because it no longer scales with anything that we want to use in the game, but we will put some points to grab perks such as the Steel and Chrome perk to increase melee damage, as well as some health and armor perks. But I don't see them as too important since Lucy is more of a stealth hacking build that will try to avoid direct combat. With this build, you'll notice you don't really have many situations where your health matters. What we're mainly focusing on is intelligence, reflex, and some cool. Our 2 main focuses obviously being blades and quick hacking. Under quick hacking, there are just so many worthwhile perks here. Forget Me Not will restore a unit of RAM once you've eliminated an enemy with a quick hack. Weak Link will reduce the needed RAM, which is also very helpful. Subliminal Message is extremely good because most of the enemies you hack aren't going to be aware of you, which will increase the damage by 50% once you've leveled it twice. Diffusion will increase the spread of the hacks by double, making it easier to take out groups. Critical Error will add critical hits into the mix, scaling the damage to what your crit stats are. Optimization will reduce the quick hack cost by another RAM unit, and Master RAM Liberator will greatly increase our recovery rate. But most importantly, Bart Moss's Legacy to craft superior quick hacks. Unless you farmed the hell out of the hacks, I'd say that's definitely necessary. Now, the Blades tree under the Reflex will highly represent the power of the monowire. Some perks you should get for sure are Roaring Waters to increase your damage by 50%, Sting Like a Bee for faster attack speed, Blessed Blade to increase crit chance by 20%, Judge, Jury, and Executioner increasing damage by up to 100% against max health enemies, which is just wild. And then if you want some really good additional perks, you can go with Fiery Blast, Deathbolt, Crimson Tide, and Dragon Strike, all being very good for the monowire. For cool, there's not a whole lot of ninjutsu we want besides Assassin to deal more damage to humans, which are the majority of our enemies. And then you also want this perk here. But for Cold-Blooded, this is another tree full of perks that will continuously add to the build. But I want to point out that the Coagulant, Immunity, Merciless, and Critical Condition are all really great perks, along with of course the Cold Blood perk in the center that these all contribute towards. And then here are the sliders for Lucy's character creation, which you can set and try to look like her. You can obviously go much further with mods, even having her outfit through a couple of different mods up on the Nexus. Now Rebecca, a lot of people's favorite character from the show, her build is a lot more straightforward as she really only focuses on guns, but pretty much every weapon she uses in the show is included in the game, such as the shotgun called Guts Shotgun, which also has been added into the game with the Edgerunners update. You can find Rebecca's Guts shotgun over in the Arasaka Plaza, of course, as a little Easter egg from where she left it on the border of the plaza under one of the ramps lying in a pool of blood. This shotgun does some insane damage and can be extremely powerful, ripping through multiple enemies at once. You can also acquire the M76E Omaha pistol, which is one of the ones that she's using throughout the series a couple of times, as well as the TKI-20 Shingen SMG. Her just insane looking sniper rifle, the SOR-22, is one of my favorite looking weapons and can be a lot of fun to use. I would recommend on the skill tree to put 18 body, 18 reflexes, 18 technical so we can craft our weapons, and then 14 cool. In the athletic skill tree, some perks I'd recommend getting for this build are the multitasker and divided attention, so you can shoot and reload while sprinting, sliding, and vaulting, which is definitely 2 perks Rebecca would have with how often she's rushing someone while unloading into them. For annihilation, you can really go all out here since we're heavily focusing on her Guts shotgun, but some perks that are definitely worth not missing are the Blood Rush perk combined with the Momentum Shift and Manic, to then grab the Speed Demon perk to deal more damage the faster you're moving, since those first 3 perks were all movement speed buffs, allowing a pretty large damage increase while moving. Hopping Off and Bloodbath are also really good perks to get, but you can just copy what I have here, or look around and grab what you want because it will all help the shotgun along with all of the health buffs you can acquire if you want to also. As for the rest of the skills, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, just copy what I have unlocked here because they're fairly obvious. Rebecca, for what little screen time she had, was just a run and gun character who may have also crafted her weapons and probably did. So just add perks to whatever weapon skill trees you'll be using, such as the assault tree as well as crafting, so you can craft those legendary versions. I would also probably lean towards elemental resistances, especially for the cyberware. But that's pretty much it. This Edgerunner build guide took a long time to make, so leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more Edgerunners and Cyberpunk videos. See ya.